With fall and winter firmly upon us now, the season has come for bone broth. And yes, there are people who drink and I guess eat bone broth year round, but bone broth season is firmly here with the temperatures dropping, snow and ice on their way in many parts of the United States and in the Northern Hemisphere. And there's nothing better, I think, as a carnivore snack or as something to go with your meal or even a way to start your day or end a long fast than some bone broth on a cold day. But why would you drink bone broth? Bone broth. Why would you go to the hassle of making it? Because it's not. I mean, it's not hard to make, but it is time consuming, especially if you have limited storage to store the bones you need to make bone broth. Why would you do it? And why would you not just buy bone broth in the store? And if you're a keto person watching this, probably store bought bone broth if it's a good, high quality enough brand will probably be okay for you. Although I implore you, read the labels. I have actually seen things labeled as bone broth at Walmart and other grocery stores that claim to be bone broth, but really have things like soy in them. Why would you put soy in bone broth? I don't know. Maybe for some flavor purposes or something. I don't know. But read the labels. There are bone broth. Most bone broths from the store will have vegetables in them. The most well-known one is Kettle and Fire. Their bone broths have vegetables in them. And when I was doing clean Mediterranean keto for the first year of my 150-pound weight loss, I regularly consumed Kettle and Fire. It tastes good. Not so wild about the soups they make, but their bone broths are great. But as I went carnivore and I started removing as many plants as I possibly could out of my diet, I didn't use store-bought bone broths anymore. But of the store-bought ones, theirs are the most widely available and might be the cleanest, although I'm pretty sure there are some higher-end brands that are more expensive and going to be cleaner possibly, but still have vegetables in them. Often you can see these in the refrigerated section of the store. Kettle and Fire is not sponsoring this video, and theirs is shelf stable. So shelf stable products, can be a little more processed, it seems. But making bone broth is easy. I mean, I would make a video on it, but it'd be short. It's literally just take a bunch of bones. I prefer to use bones from the same kind of animal, so beef broth as opposed to just an amalgamation. People do put beef and pork and chicken and lamb bones all in the same pot. If they want to, that's fine. But make sure when you put the bones in the pot that you have, some knuckle bones in there or something that has a lot of cartilage on it or connective tissue. You can buy soup bones. They often have a little bit of meat on them. That's totally fine. Before you put them in the pot, though, before you put any of those bones in the pot, roast them. I do that by putting them in my pellet grill because a lot of my bones for my bone broth are beef bone ribs. But it helps to unlock some of the contents of the bones. After that, you put enough water in there to an inch or two above the bones. Put a couple tablespoons of vinegar if you want. People do debate that. Some people say snarkily, where animal does vinegar come from? Vinegar's not going to cause you a problem, probably, unless you have an extremely sensitive palate or a sensitive system. Let me know in the comments if you are one of those who cannot have vinegar at all. I'm curious. I've never encountered that before. But people will tell you that vinegar is good for bone broth because it will help to unlock a lot of the nutrients in the bones. But really, the main benefit to bone broth is the collagen, and we'll go over that here in a second. But in addition to that, you then season as you can or to your taste. Now, for a strict carnivore, that's going to be salt, and that's it. How much salt? That depends. The last time I made some bone broth, I put way too much of the Redmond's real salt in. It was almost too hard to drink. So I would start with a tablespoon or two, depending on how big of a batch you're making. The kind of pot you're going to want, by the way, is going to be one of those big stock pots. This is the time of year to go find them. You can, if you're in the United States, I would go check out places like Ross Dress for Less and TJ Maxx and those kind of places in their kitchen section. You're probably going to find the best deal at a place like that. You can probably find them at, Goodwill or something, but you're going to have to scrub them clean. All right, so first, bone broth contains important vitamins and nutrients. They come from the bones, obviously. That includes magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, iodine, which seems to be hard to get for a lot of carnivores, and other trace minerals. This is important here for maintaining metabolic health. Now, you don't have to drink bone broth to be a good carnivore and have a successful carnivore diet, but a lot of people who struggle will probably find some of their problems will be cured by just periodically having bone broth. So that's the first one. Of course, in there, if you leave the marrow in the bones, you will find that when you make the bone broth, you also get all the contents of the bone marrow. Now, personally, I think that's a waste of bone marrow. I would rather take the marrow bones and roast them separately, scrape the marrow out and put it on a steak or something, and then say you'll still get some trace of that if you say in the bones itself, of course, if you save the bones for the bone broth. But if you leave the marrow in there, that will permeate throughout the rest of your broth. So number two is it does help with the digestive system. Okay, so gut health. Collagen is great for your gut health. It helps to deal with the whole host of problems that people have gotten from eating the standard American diet in terms of actual physical damage done to our digestive tract. Because it turns out eating a bunch of carbs and fibrous stuff is not good for us. Research is showing that right now. Dr. Sean Baker has a video recently, one of his daily short videos he did in the last few days, about how actually not great fiber is for you based on some current scientific research. So I would go there. But if you want to heal the gut, collagen, which leads me to number three. This is going to be good for, joint health, skin health. We know that all that stuff about collagen, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But collagen is really, really good for gut health, for joints, for your skin. Now, if you've had an injury, I took a spill the other day in my kitchen, tripped over something that shouldn't have been there, and I didn't see it, and my stubbed my toe almost to the point where, if it had been a much worse of a fall, I could have actually broken my toe. That's how bad it was. But collagen is something I should be taking right now, consuming, because I think it does help with healing. So number three, bone broth helps with inflammation. The bones contain arginine, glycine, and other anti-inflammatory compounds. So if you're dealing with inflammation, which I know a lot of you come to the carnivore diet for dealing with inflammation, bone broth will help you with inflammation. This also helps with healing, because what is part of the healing process? A lot of localized inflammation. So get your bone broth in, okay? Make the bone broth. You don't have to buy it. Just make sure you save the bones from your T-bones and your, or buy some soup bones from the meat section of the grocery store. Not the best bones because of the, the feedlot feeding of the cattle, but still far better than buying necessarily store-bought stuff, unless you go for some really nice ones. Number four, I'm going to hit this again, and that's going to be the joint health. Collagen is the building block of your joints. I mean, that's what your joints are made out of. They're made of the same cartilage you see on animal bones, right? We're not that different as creatures at the end of the day. So if you're worried about joint health, if you're older and you've got joint damage, if you've got athletic history of joint injury history, bone broth. Make the bone broth. So how do you end up making it? How long does it take? After you've gotten all the ingredients I told you about at the beginning of the video, you get the pot to a simmer and let it cook for 12 hours minimum, 24 hours typically. I've seen as long as 48 hours. If you go much longer than the 14, 15, 16 hours, you will probably have to periodically add water to the pot if you're wanting to make a rather large amount of bone broth. But if you're wanting to get the really thick stuff that when you put it in that becomes almost, before it even refrigerates, gets super thick and gelatinous, then you just let it simmer down. But keep an eye on that pot. But 24 hours minimum. What other benefits of bone broth do you know? For satiety purposes, for fasting purposes, let me know in the comments. Just one final thing though. The protein in collagen is not considered a complete protein. It's missing a couple of essential amino acids. So, if you're tracking protein, I wouldn't bother tracking the collagen or the bone broth you're making. Just make sure to scrape the fat layer off the top if you don't want that, because drinking pure fat is weird to me. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It really does help. Share this on social media. That helps a lot as well. I'm Anthony Stine, Practical Carnivore. Thanks for your time.